So I'll let you know. Dun, 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 dun. Come on, Skype. And here we go. Kirsten, how you doing?
I am very good, Mike. I am very good. I'm happy. I'm happy to see you. It's only been 10 years since we saw
Yeah,
each other.
it took a pandemic for us to finally get close
I
to
know.
face again.
I know. It took God knows how many marriages, births, deaths, and divorces until we got a conversation going again.
Yeah, yeah. There's quite a few of those in the fitness world. That's an interesting
Yes.
topic altogether. I
Yes,
think
it is.
I think when people get into the fitness business and they start having a lot of success and they're changing all these avenues of their life, if whoever is your significant other isn't involved in that transformation in some way, all of a sudden you're going, huh, why are we even together? And these divergent paths, you know, just organically happen. It happens
You
with in a
start
lot
to
of
question everything.
But when we were talking about your coaching program, and you have a really interesting philosophy of you like to have some activity dialed in 7 days a week. And sometimes people hear 7 days a week, what about rest days and all that? But you make a salient point that, look, you got to build the habit of activity. And
Yes,
it should be something, you should be doing something 7 days a week, ideally, if nothing else, as an aspirational goal.
absolutely. I mean, because you and I were just chatting about this, that most people do not have particularly active lives these days. They're
Right.
generally pretty sedentary, whether it's
Yeah.
an office job or well, everyone's working from home right now. It's like people aren't going anywhere. If
Every,
you listen to your government, you're not meant to leave your house except to go to the grocery store once a week. It's like, for God's sake, people aren't moving. So they're not going out and getting that activity they should be getting, whether there's a pandemic or not. Because a
right.
lot of people, let's just be blunt, are fucking lazy. It's
Oh,
just the way they've been brought up. They're born into families that are inherently lazy and they just carry on that cycle.
yeah.
So when I started coaching online, I decided to make what I do a 7 day a week effort, but I would program it in that we have a rhythm to the week. So it's not every day the same. So the way my stuff is planned out, we do kettlebells, which is reasonably high intensity on a Monday and a Wednesday and a Friday. And then on a Tuesday, Thursday, we go a bit lower intensity with body weight. And then I do a hybrid workout with kettlebells and body weight on a Saturday. And then every Sunday, we do something that I call active recovery. And that's my take on yoga, animal flow, mobility. And we just kind of fuse that into a very grounding, gentle, slow, steady session. So if people do something every day, they're only working for 20 to 30 minutes with me. And in my opinion, that's completely doable for 7 days a week because we've got 24 hours in a day. And if you're not doing very much the rest of the time, of course you can give 20 to 30 minutes to your health and well-being and your strength and your sanity, because we don't just train to look good. We train to keep our brains from going mental
Right.
as well. So you want to release that tension and that stress. So that's how I plan it in. So we have this rhythm of the week. And if people want, they can follow a planner that I set out for them. So they just, oh, what are we doing today? Oh, check the calendar, click on the workout, and off they go. And if they don't like that one, then I have all of my content stored in what I call my content library, and they
Yeah.
can just go in there and pick another one. But the point is that every day there's this expectation that you should do something.
Right.
So, for example, a couple of my members today, it's been a kind of weird energy day today where some people just haven't been feeling too great. So a couple of them were sending me messages through one of our social channels saying, just couldn't do the workout today, but I did an active recovery instead. Yes, that's
Yeah.
a win
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they've gone from a place where ordinarily they might have said, I'm having a shit day. Fuck it. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to put the TV on and I'm going to have a packet of biscuits or something. And they didn't do that.
Right.
Instead, they went and they said, well, what am I going to do that's going to make me feel better? I'll do an active recovery. I always feel better after I do that. So they went and they did that. So they're taking movement and making themselves feel better, even when emotionally they weren't feeling in too great a place. So we're starting to learn that your movement and your strength work and your mobility work doesn't just impact your physical self, it impacts your emotional well-being as well, and your ability to cope with stress and just whatever it is that life throws at you.
Yeah.
You know, so that's my reasoning behind let's do something every day. And we want to build that continuity, that consistency. It's that sense of achievement when you can actually stick with something.
Oh,
because as you said in one of your videos a little while ago, I don't remember how long ago, maybe 5-6 months ago, and I saw it on Instagram, and you said about it takes a year for you to essentially be hardwired for this to be normal, for your new way of being, as in working out and looking after yourself, to be normal. So if anyone thinks they're going to do an 8, 12, 16, 20 week challenge, whatever, and then they've got the keys to the kingdom, they're very much mistaken, because you're just warming up at that point. It takes time and it takes consistent effort. So, and I remember sharing that video of yours with my team. And I said, listen to this man, he knows what he's talking about. I think you got a lot of new followers that day.
You got to make it like that.
I said, you need to listen to him. He knows what he's talking about. And one of my team actually was super excited when I said I was talking to you. She said, oh, I love that guy. I watch his videos on Instagram. So you've got fans. So we want to develop that continuity and that consistency. It's not just about our physical selves, it's the emotional health. And well, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. I think we all need to, get a bit of release.
I think it's just getting more activity than ever. Yeah, now we need more activity than ever before. And as you stated, not just for the physical benefits, for more importantly, the mental, the emotional benefits. Because physical activity, you never feel worse for doing physical activity. No one ever says, man, I felt terrible, and then I worked out and I felt even worse. You're always better. It may not eradicate the problem, but you're going to feel better. You're going to feel more empowered to take charge of it. And I like the idea of let's be active every day. For me, it's automatic because I'm an active guy. If I'm not working out, then I'm skateboarding with my dogs or I'm going hiking somewhere. I don't like just sitting around. I mean, every once in a while you have a day where you're just going to lounge out, but I don't need that often. Maybe I lounge out for a couple hours in a day, but I want to do something. I want to do some physical activity every day, at the very least, the long walk.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And most people, sadly, are not like you. It's like we're almost the minority now, which is kind of scary, because you want to have optimal physical health. You want to feel good. You want to feel not just, you don't just want to feel good about what you see in a mirror. You want to feel empowered, full stop. And that's, emotionally, spiritually. And all of these things are so intrinsically linked to our movement. If we, like, say you get sick or I get sick and we're not able to do what we want to do for a week, we're going to be grouchy as hell and we're going to feel like shit, because we know that when we move, we feel better because it's that outlet for stress. And I think so many people are so used to being just lazy that they don't realize the value in movement. People are trying to compound stress through drugs and alcohol or, whatever other outlet, gambling, whatever.
Yeah.
All the online stuff that is so prevalent now because people can't get to casinos. So they're doing it on their phones or their iPads.
Yeah.
And those are just so destructive. Whereas if we would just embrace movement, get outside, breathe fresh air, go for a walk, it would help to dispel a lot of the horrible things that people experience in their heads on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you enjoy being sedentary so much more if you put in some physical activity as well. I mean, kicking back on the couch, watching a show after a hard workout, that feels great. Now, if you're doing this thing, but you didn't have the hard workout first, it's not going to feel anywhere near as good. One of the things I missed about teaching workshops actually is that workshops were such an incredible delivery of energy, right? You're giving everything you have for often 8 hours in a day.
Yeah.
At that day, you sleep like, I mean, you're wiped out, your body's sore, your back is stiff, but you have a real strong sense of accomplishment and you sleep like a baby that night.
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I remember when you came to Edinburgh in
Yeah.
Scotland, and I did the entire weekend because
Hmm.
you taught on the Saturday and the Sunday. Oh my
Right.
God, that place was buzzing. You know, the energy was
Yeah.
just
Fun. It
you
was a
you
lot.
could cut the air with a knife. It was great. And that's such positive energy. And I just can't imagine why anyone wouldn't want to be part of that or have a piece of that. Because that's what it means to be alive when you feel that energy. I think a lot of people are just existing. They're not actually living.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Sometimes I think people are intimidated by that. And one thing I liked about that weekend is you had the whole gambit of physical fitness in there. You had people such as yourself that are really strong and fit. And then you had people where they're at the very beginning of their fitness journey, but everyone had a good time because that's the key
Yes.
is you a fun, positive environment. I think sometimes people feel that when they come into that environment, they're going to be ridiculed or marginalized in some way. And that's really not what happens. You know, we're all
Yeah.
compassionate people. And when we see someone who's trying to improve themselves, we know how hard that is. Look, whenever I see anyone doing any kind of workout, I always say, hey, good job, keep it going.
Yeah.
Because I know how difficult it is. And this is someone who's actually trying to improve things. Whether their technique is perfect or what they're doing, I think, is optimal or not, that all of that is irrelevant. The fact that they're trying to make some positive changes, that's the most important thing. And then we'll figure out the best course down the line.
Well, they're still trying,
Yeah.
and you have to acknowledge that and celebrate that because when someone is trying, they're putting forward that effort. So you can help them, you can help to shape them and bring them forwards. And that's always going to be a positive thing. And I think the good thing about workshops like what you used to teach is when you would have that broad range of people coming in, but everyone was connecting within the work that was happening. So it didn't matter how experienced someone was, you're all there still experiencing this delivery and this system for the first time. So you're all on the same page. It doesn't matter if someone's trained for 20 years or someone's trained for 20 minutes. That was the first time any of us had trained with you and received your style of teaching. So we were all connecting at that moment from the same place, irrespective of our experience.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's probably part of what made it such a great weekend. It was just, yeah, real diverse room of people.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I was buzzing really hard myself after that weekend because before that
Yeah.
I the US a lot and I was getting the US market was starting to become more jaded because there's so many courses that come through. People weren't as excited as they used to be. And then when I taught that course out there, it reminded me of my early days of teaching courses where people were really excited to consume this information and people were
Yeah.
hungry for a lot. There weren't a lot of people traveling really anywhere at that point. Steve Cotter was doing some courses. Later on, Maxwell did.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot coming through the UK. It wasn't as if there were a different course every weekend. So when something did come through, it was a big deal. I mean, things are different
Yeah.
now. Even like right before the pandemic, there were a ton of courses coming through left and right all over the world. It's a little bit different now. But at that time it was pretty nascent. So when people had an opportunity, they really got excited about it.
I think at that point as well, just from my personal viewpoint, I think the kettlebell movement was stronger
Yeah.
then because it wasn't watered down. I think now it's incredibly diluted.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like bodybuilding, where they've now got about 300 classes going. It's like, which class are you in? Well, I don't know. I might choose this one, this one, this one, this one. No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. What class are you in? There's just so many. And I mean, I used to be a bodybuilder and I have no interest in bodybuilding as it is now because to me, it's not what it was and it's not what it should be.
Well, what
And it's
got
essentially the same with kettlebells.
Yeah. What got you into bodybuilding? Let's talk about your bodybuilding experience a little bit. How long ago
Well,
did you get into that, and what about it appealed to you?
Well, I was 16 years old when I first started training, and I started training because I was an obese teenager.
Hmm.
So I was overweight from about the age of 9, and I got bullied horribly throughout my school years. And I blocked a lot of that out. So it's like I don't really have many memories of school years because I think I've just walls up, blocked them out.
Right.
So when I got to 16 and I left school, and I thought, I need to change this. I have to do something. And I went to a gym and I joined. And I remember them saying to me, well, what do you want to do? And I just said, I just want to lose weight. That was my goal. I just needed to lose weight. So I got into the gym and they gave me the basic program that everyone gets, warm up on the bike for 5 minutes and
Right.
2 sets of 10 and all
Yeah.
that. And then I realized that I really enjoyed that environment. I enjoyed seeing people lifting, and I really enjoyed watching people properly training. And I wanted a piece of that. But it's kind of in my DNA because my grandfather, who's passed away a long time ago, was a competitive bodybuilder, powerlifter, and Olympic weightlifter.
Wow.
Back in the days when people would do all 3 modalities, they wouldn't just choose one, they would do all 3. So they would do a season in one and it would roll into the next thing, the next season, the next thing, the next season, and then we're back to the beginning again. So they didn't pick and choose. They were very diverse. And he actually he opened a gym in Aberdeen in Scotland, where I come from originally. And it was called the Health and Strength Club. And he opened it, I think it was in the early 50s, possibly even earlier than that. It's still there, Mike. It's still there to this day. That gym still operates. It's a community initiative in quite a rundown part of Aberdeen, but it is still there and it's still hardcore as hell. And he used to run clubs where he would, young guys would come in and be taught how to lift, and then they would compete and bodybuilding, powerlifting, weightlifting, and so on. So I had that in my gene pool, really, but it was never really acknowledged by some members of my family. I was just seen to be a fat kid, so I wasn't really encouraged to do anything. But in the back of my head, I knew where I'd come from, and I knew there was something in me that could do this. So anyway, the gym that I joined, and I'm starting to work out and lose weight and start to feel better, and people are noticing. And I struck up a conversation with a guy there who's a trainer, and his name's Stan. And he's still a trainer to this day. He's in his 70s, and he's still a trainer.
Wow.
And we're chatting away, and he asked me what my name was. And this was before I was married, so my surname was Moore. And he said, Moore, you're not Jimmy Moore's granddaughter, are you? And that was my grandfather. And I said, yeah. He said, that was who got me training. He said, wow. And that was it. Stan basically took me under his wing after that and made sure I knew what I was doing and would help me with technique and would advise me and encourage me. Because I was a teenager. I was like in my first job. I had no money. So he would just, now and again, I think you should be doing this or do it this way. And he used to organize bodybuilding shows as well. And when he sees that I'm improving, he said, you should think about competing. I think you'd be quite good. And I'm like, no chance. Me in a bikini, no chance. Well, I ended up doing it. And my first competition was when I was 17 years old, and I never looked back. And that was in the Federation NABA, which was the one that Arnold Schwarzenegger started all those years ago. That's the National Amateur Bodybuilders Association. Right. So Arnold won the NABA Universe. So I competed with NABA and started off in figure. And by the time I got to the age of 19, I was winning figure titles. I'd qualified for the nationals. I qualified for the world championships. So I'd accomplished a lot from being this obese kid to being on a bodybuilding stage. It was just a complete, one side to the other. It was pretty crazy. So yeah, I loved bodybuilding and everything it gave me. It gave me routine and discipline and focus. And that's something that I'd never had growing up. I'd always kind of felt out of place, partly because of my weight and the bullying and all that. You just don't feel like you really belong. But when I got into bodybuilding, it's like, wow, this is like a ready-made family right here. And we're all doing this crazy, weird, wonderful thing. We're all doing it together. We're all painting each other before competitions, this fake tan, and we're all helping each other to put posing routines together. And it was just the most wonderful experience. and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I absolutely loved it. And I was in the figure class until I was in my early 20s. And then I stopped competing for a long time. And then when I lived overseas in New Zealand, I was encouraged over there to have another crack at it. You're not finished yet. Go and do another one. And I went into the physique class because previous to that I had been figure. So I went into physique and I just wiped the floor with the competition. It was amazing.
Yeah. You've lived in New Zealand a few times. Weren't you just there?
Yeah. I've lived there twice. So the first time we lived there for about 4 years, and I think the second time we were there for about 3 years.
Well, what brought you
during my first stint? Sorry.
How did you end up out there?
Just wanted a change, to be honest. Got married in 2005, I think it was. And where are we going to go? What are we going to do? Let's try something different. There was no children to think about. There was nothing like that. Sold the property we had and just said, let's go. Yeah. And at that time, New Zealand were in a major skills shortage for what my husband does. He's a joiner or a carpenter, I think, as you guys refer to it.
Yeah.
And so we got in there just like that. It was a choice of New Zealand or Australia. What's it going to be? And we went for New Zealand. So yeah, we lived there twice. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, I've been there. Been to both Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, I've been to I didn't teach in New Zealand, but I've been there as a teenager with my parents, and that was really nice. And then Australia, I taught in Melbourne and Sydney in 2013. I want to say that, and I had been there before as a young man too, as a kid.
Yeah,
I love both countries. They're both amazing places.
Yeah, it is beautiful. It's incredibly remote. So you only realize how far away it is once you live there, and nobody wants to come and visit you because they don't want to spend 26 hours.
Good and bad. Yeah. How do I get away from all this family? Okay, I'm going to move to Australia.
I'm going to move to Australia or New Zealand. Nobody's going to visit me. That's it.
That could be a plus depending on your situation.
It certainly could. Yeah, depending on where your head's at, it's going to be either a blessing or a curse.
Yeah.
So, but a beautiful place. But yeah, I competed in physique when I lived there, and I did one show, won it, won the open physique, overall physique, and qualified for the Miss Universe. So just bang. Yeah, I was really happy with that result. And then that was it. I drew a line under it. I'd accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I think the mission was complete. The job was done. I didn't want to really pursue any further, because if I did, it would have meant going down the more aggressive chemical enhancement, which I wasn't really prepared to do. Right. Yeah, I'm not saying I couldn't have done more without going too extreme, but I'm an extreme kind of person. So it's like, if I'm going to do this stuff, I'm going to do it well. And it's like, if I was going to stay in it, it would have been for a pro card. It wouldn't have just been for Little League. So right. I said, well, no, we'll just draw a line here. And then I ended up becoming a parent, and fast forward to now, and it's like, here we are. Bodybuilding was a huge part of my life.
In the industry as a coach in any way, or training other people, or did that happen after you?
Yes. I did, not on a big scale, but I did coach on quite a small scale. So I was usually the person behind a number of people who would be up on stage for the first time, or I would be the person behind their posing routine, or I was the person behind the tan. It's like I was quite involved. That was part of the reason that I ended up competing again in New Zealand. It wasn't really a plan. I'd gone along with a young kid that I was coaching at the time, and he did brilliantly well. This kid was natural, but oh my God, his shape was phenomenal. We got him competing when he was 15 years old, and I went along to help him, pump up, do his tan, all that kind of stuff. And people backstage were taking pictures of me and saying, "Who is she? Where is she from?" Because I was bigger at the time.
Yeah.
And I ended up being plastered all over a website in New Zealand. It was a bodybuilding website, and they said, "Who all wants to see this woman on stage next year? Tell us." And I thought, oh, okay. So I said, well, I'll do one. I've got nothing to lose, and yeah, let's go for physique and see how it turns out. And it turned out very well. But yeah, I was there as a support for this young guy, who was brilliant, by the way. That kid was amazing. Whatever I told him to do, he would do it. You know, he was one of these kids that I remember. I did a walking lunges workout with him once, and I said, we're just going to keep going until one of us collapses. That's the deal for today. It's how intense we're going to work today. And bless his heart, I mean, he could barely walk by the time we'd finished. And when I'm putting his tan on for his competition, because his mum asked me if I'd do it because she didn't want to do it. She thought she'd screw it up. And he was like a kid at Christmas. He said, Kirsten, look at my legs. He's flexing his legs, and there's these cross striations and feathers. And he said, that lunge workout, can we do that again next week?
That's someone who's educated right there.
I love that kid. And it was just the innocence of youth that, in spite of the pain, in spite of the discomfort, he's looking at himself and going, yes. And I love that. I got such a buzz out of that. I think when he won, I was probably happier than he was. It's like watching your child on stage.
It's amazing. Reminds me of Schwarzenegger saying that some of the other bodybuilders he trained with, they would be in that anticipation stage before a workout going, oh, I don't want to do this and that. And he said he was always excited to train because every single time he trained, he knew it was getting him one step closer to where he wanted to go. So he did everything, the smile on his face or inside of his head. He was just excited to do every single thing. And I can't say that I always feel that way about training, but I feel that way most of the time. Because when you know where you're trying to go, it's important to have some kind of goal that's important to you, because that's what makes you go on those days where you don't feel like doing it. If you're just training for the sake of training, it's like, I don't really know. I'm just working out. Well, that's not that exciting. You're not programming your brain to say, no, we have to make these commitments. And like what you're saying about 7 days a week, I like that, because think about any other habit you build. You brush your teeth 7 days a week. You don't brush your teeth Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then take the weekends off. Or by, okay, I'm just going to brush my teeth for 90 seconds on this day, and then I'll do it for 3 minutes the next day. Like, no, we make that's automatic. That's not something where you have to motivate yourself to do. Like, oh, let me make sure I brush my teeth this morning. You just do it automatically. Let me make sure I get groceries. No, you do it automatically. So, I mean, eventually, if you make physical fitness part of your lifestyle, and that can encompass a lot of things. It can encompass intense training. It can encompass going for long walks. It can encompass hiking, skateboarding, whatever activity you like. Once it becomes something that's automatic for you, then you never have to worry about ever falling off.
Yeah, it's what you do.
Yeah.
It is just what you do. I mean, and I still get asked this question, not as often as maybe I used to, but I still get it occasionally, how do you keep doing this? Why do you do it? What makes you do it? And it's like, nothing makes me do it. I love this. This is what I do. I feel better by moving. And to me, it's just normal now. Like, for example, when I get up in the morning, I always spend 10 minutes doing joint mobilization and stretching. Always. I don't even think about it now. It's the first thing I do when I get out of bed in the morning. And that's one of my own little self-care rituals. And, some people that I work with or that I train have started doing this as well. And they'll say, well, yeah, I feel so much better. I just function better. My head is clearer just by that one little thing. So for me, it's not a chore. I just do it, probably just in exactly the same way as yourself. You just do it. And some days you don't feel like it. Some days are harder than others. And some days you do just need a break, but you don't need a break the majority of your life. And that's what a lot of people out there are doing. The majority of their life is this off time. It's like, well, no, you've had how many years doing very little? Let's redress that balance now and make up for lost time.
Right. Yeah, if you only train when you're excited and motivated, that's going to be real fleeting. You're not going to get, you're not going to achieve anything noteworthy. That's for sure. Yeah,
Yes,
I can go
yes,
through 3, 4 months where I'm enthusiastic for every single workout, and then I can go through maybe a month where I'm not motivated to do it, but that doesn't stop me from doing it. I'm still going to put it in there, and eventually that motivation comes back, and now you're primed to take advantage of it again. Now, if you just said I'm just gonna take the month off, and when I'm motivated, then I'll get back in. Well, after a month off, you're gonna be so deconditioned. Everything's gonna feel heavy. You're
yep,
you're gonna be out of shape, and you're gonna be extremely irritated too that you let yourself deteriorate like that. Now you can
yeah.
build back pretty fast, but why waste time with losing, gaining, losing, gaining? It's like, okay, let's go through periods where you're super excited, so let's push it as hard as we can. Now you're going to go through a period where maybe you're not so excited, but that doesn't mean that you stop training altogether. Just dial it back a little bit. Just keep putting in the workouts, keep putting in the practices. And then when that enthusiasm comes back, you're right there, ready to capitalize again.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's why I've consistently improved year on year since I
Yeah.
started. I mean, I'm 42 now, and I've trained since I was 16. And I can honestly, hand on heart, tell you that every year I have improved in something. There's not been a single year that I have had a slip back or a regression. Even when I was pregnant with my children, I still trained.
Yeah.
So I did what I could to the best of my ability, even during that period of time. And I remember after my son was born, I think he was 6 weeks old, and I got straight back into quite heavy kettlebell lifting. So I got back in with more moderate body weight work and swimming and things immediately after he was born. But it didn't take long for me to jump back into the heavier stuff because it makes me feel good and I love it. But I think the key thing is that I love what I do. And I think that's why I've always progressed year on year. So we have to find something that pushes our buttons,
Yeah.
something that makes us feel good, whether that is swinging kettlebells, or barbell work, or dumbbell work, or skateboarding. You find the thing that does it for you, and you do that. You know, and yeah, you can have periods of time where you weave in and out of other things, but there's always that one central thing that pulls you back. And for me, that's always been strength work, whether it's kettlebells as it is primarily now, or body weight work, or work with the barbells, or old time strongman lifting that I did for a little while as well. But strength has always been at the heart of it. It's always been the center point for me. I
Right.
refer to it as like my anchor. It's this thing that is always there that I don't drift too far from because it keeps pulling me back.
Right.
But it's definitely finding something that you love and doing it for pure reasons. Like when I first started training all those years ago, yeah, it was for quite a shallow reason. I wanted to lose weight. I was sick of being fat. That was the bottom line. I didn't want to be bullied anymore. I didn't want to be fat. I wanted to feel better about myself, which is not shallow, but still superficial. Whereas the further I got into the journey, I realized how better I felt as an individual, how much more I could contribute to others as a human being because I felt good, you know, and that is what has kept me training. It's not what I see in the mirror or even the weight that I'm lifting. It's the fact that I am just a better overall human being because I train, because it keeps me grounded and centered and focused. And now, we find ourselves in this weird ass pandemic situation. And I've got a an online coaching team who rely quite heavily on me some days. I need to be strong. I need to be this thing that stays strong in the middle when other people are kind of losing their shit and falling down. You need
Right.
someone to stay strong. So we all have reasons for doing what we do, but I think if we make strength your central point, your pillar, it ripples over into everything else that you do. I think above and beyond any other form of training that people do. I
Yeah.
think strength is the biggie. If we can focus on strength, we're going to be better at whatever else we do.
That's an internal motivation, and it's for you more than anyone else. Even if you're competing,
Yes.
not competing, it's getting strong. That's for you, and that's
Yeah.
motivates me to keep training because I still like to get stronger. I still like to push the envelope, see what I'm capable of doing. And I think when you first got into training, you were focused on an external goal because you're going, okay, I don't want to be bullied anymore. So you're focused on how other people are perceiving you. You want that to change. And that's not
Yeah.
uncommon. I think most people to some extent are motivated by that, if not to a large extent motivated by that.
Hmm.
But that's not going to sustain you over time. Right? That'll get you in the door, but it has to become something more meaningful after a while rather than I'm going to prove these people wrong or these people aren't going to come at me that way anymore. That's good motivation initially, but you can never rely on trolls or that kind of behavior to motivate you. I hear some people say, yeah, when people say I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm going to prove them. I go, but who gives a fuck what they think? No, I'm not.
Yes.
Why am I motivated to prove to some asshole I don't even like that I can? Who cares if that person believes I can do it or not do it? That's not going to motivate me to grind every day. Like, man, I'm going to show this idiot that I can make this happen. After a while, I'm going to be like, who cares about that idiot? And then you don't have all the trade. So you have to have something more internal, important, something deeper than that, something not so
Yes,
superficial.
you absolutely do. It's like when I look back at my early years of competing in bodybuilding, I remember, even though we were like this big family, all of us in NABA, Scotland, and we would all communicate with each other, and we were all friends. It was great. You would compete with each other on stage, but off stage you were friends. It was all good. But I remember there were a couple of women who were a little bit brassed off, a little bit pissed off that here's this young one coming in. She's trained for 5 minutes and she's beaten us. Why is she beating us? And I realized over time that it was because I was so damn consistent. A lot of people back then, and I don't know about now in bodybuilding or other sports, but certainly back then, some people would compete and they would train just to compete. So they would literally train for 3 months before a show. Okay. And then the show would be over and they wouldn't train again until it was the next season, until it was time to get back in.
Right.
So you wouldn't see them in the gym for months. And yet, where was I? In the gym, because I love to train. So, and that's where my reasoning for training really became so strong for me, because I realized I was there because I just loved it. I was there because it made me feel good. I loved it. Competing was a side effect. I could have taken or left it. I really enjoyed it, loved the experience, but it wasn't my driving force for doing it. I think the first show I ever did, it was possibly my driving force because I thought, well, I've got to keep doing this now because I've committed to this show. But after that, it was very much an internal thing. And I couldn't understand why so many of them took time off after a show. And that's when I realized that their reasons weren't the same as mine. They were doing it for incredibly superficial reasons. We're just doing it for that show and we'll look great on that day. And then I've got a holiday booked after that. So I'll go on my holiday and I'll look amazing. And then I won't train again for 3 or 4 months. And then I'll do that cycle again. And that really amazed me. That was quite a big learning experience for me, to realize that people didn't necessarily have the same inherent desire like I did just to train.
Right.
I think my grandfather would have been like I am now. I probably get that from him. He just trained. It's like he was strong and robust up until the day he died. I think the day he died, he'd gone out and he'd chopped down a tree, right? That's the kind of guy he was. He chopped down a tree and had it over his shoulder, lugged it home, and was going to saw it up for firewood, but went to take a nap and then didn't wake up. And I just thought, how poetic for such a strong man.
Yeah.
What was he doing before he died? Was he sick? No, he chopped down a tree.
And hey, you know what? If you have to go, that's not the worst way to go. You just took a nap.
Yes.
Up. You didn't have this miserable last 3 months in bed somewhere.
Yeah, I just thought that was so poetic for someone that is just so robust and strong. It's like, what did he do the day he passed away? He sawed down a tree and he carried it home over his shoulder. I love that. So for someone like him, being strong was just him. It was just what he did. And then the further I've gotten along in my journey, and I've been looking at old pictures of him, and there's one that I've got that I've published to social media. I'll try and find it and share it with you. You might really like this. And he's squatting, right? He's shirtless and he's squatting, and he's got his barbell on his back, and there's only like 60K or something on the bar. But as he's squatting, he's got this huge smile on his face. And I remember when I shared that to social media before, and someone commented and they said, never trust a man who smiles like that when he's squatting. But when I saw that picture, I saw the kind of fire there, that this is a man, this is his passion, this is what he loves. And then I realized, wow, that's like me. I'm like that. Yeah, that's how strongly I feel about training. I love it. It's like I was filming a session for my online coaching group this morning, and I've created a new little mini series to teach them how to pistol squat. Okay, because it's something that is challenging, not a lot of people can do. So I thought, okay, let's create a little pathway to the pistol squat. So today it culminated with the last piece that I filmed, and it was just a 10-minute workout, and we did like roll back to roll through into a pistol, alternating pistols. And when I looked back over it to edit it, I realized I was smiling right the way through it. Some people would do this stuff and they'd go, I hate this. This is so hard. It's like I was buzzing off of doing this 10-minute workout because I was doing something that was challenging and that was hard. And again, that was just a reminder for me why I do what I do. I do it because I really love it. I don't just do this stuff because someone pays me. I do it because it's a passion, you know. If someone pays me, great, that's a bonus, thank you. But I would do it anyway.
Yeah, that's when, you know, I feel that way about my line of work as well. Obviously, I'm in the fitness industry still. I'm just on a different side now, designing nutrition supplements for active people. But I love it. I enjoy it. And also the freedom that I have as a result of this is unparalleled. Like no one would pay me as much as I make now to work for someone else. And even if they did, I would be miserable. I'd rather make 1/4 of what I make right now and have the lifestyle I have than ever go back to doing something for someone. And it's not even so much working for someone else is the problem. It's that every time I did work for someone else, it was never something I was passionate about. I wasn't excited about it. This is their business. I'm helping them build their business, but I don't care about their business. You know, it's not something I go home and think about, oh, how am I going to build their business? But your own business, you're thinking about it all the time in a good way. And even though entrepreneur, I always say being an entrepreneur is you're a problem solver. All you deal with are problems. Every day there are problems. Every day you come up with solutions. And a lot of times it's like whack-a-mole. Here's one problem. Boom, got that one. Whoop, here comes another one. That's what is being an entrepreneur in a nutshell. It's problem solving. And the better you are at problem solving, the more money you're going to make, the more you're going to build your business. But that's all it is. Every day there are problems. Every day you have to come up with solutions. And it can be frustrating at times. But what's the alternative? The alternative is maybe you have less problems, but you have a much bigger problem in the sense that you don't like what you're doing. And that's the biggest problem of all. You know, if you hate what you're doing, living, most of us are going to spend more time working than anything else. That's just a reality. So if you hate what you do for work, that means you hate most of your life. You're living for the weekends. Sunday comes along, you're going, oh, tomorrow's Monday. I hated that feeling. I never want to feel like that ever again. Because to me, Friday is no different than Monday. So people go, oh, hey, it's Friday. What do you do? You got any special plans? Like, not really. And if something I want to do that happens to be on the weekend, yeah, sure, I'll do that. But Monday can be just as exciting, if not more exciting, when you're doing your own thing, like what you're doing.
I completely agree with you. I mean, and I absolutely love seeing the success that you've had with your supplement line.
Oh, thank you.
Because you were just launching this. This was really just kind of your baby when we met all those years ago.
Yeah, I was just talking about that course and stuff.
You were teaching or discussing hormone optimization, and so it was no surprise to me when you launched your supplements, and I knew you would do well because it's like, wow, whatever he's selling, I'm buying it because he knows his shit. Yeah, you know, he knows what he's talking about, and I just really admire that because you do it with a passion. So yeah, it was zero surprise to me when I saw all these products starting to come out, and I thought, oh, okay, what next? Let's check what he's doing now. It's really cool.
I wouldn't mind actually, well, thank you. I wouldn't mind actually teaching again in some capacity once the world gets back to normal. I wouldn't do kettlebell only courses. I would do something else, maybe a combination of different things. I don't quite know right now, but good news is I have plenty of time to think about it because no one's going to be teaching. I've got a year to figure out something if I want to do it because it's not going to happen anytime soon, that's for sure.
I think so. I reckon you're right. It's probably going to be about a year. I think some people are incredibly optimistic and thinking, oh yeah, 3 months, March, April will be, yeah. And I'm just thinking,
I do think there's a lot of improvements. I do believe things are going to improve a great deal this year, especially as we get into the third and fourth quarter. That's just, I mean, this is not based on my expertise as a infectious disease expert, but it's just based on the way I see the world shifting right now. I think we're going to get a grasp of this and figure things out, and we're going to move forward together. But it's going to take all these kind of, look, everything takes longer than you would like it to take. I just had serious impediments with one of my products. It took forever to get it in stock. It was actually out of stock for a month, my testosterone booster. And that's my number one selling product. It's my flagship product. It's what moves everything else. People buy that, buy everything else. So without that, the leader, you don't have all the other products following that. People are just waiting for that to come back in stock. So that's a one product I never want to be out of stock of. And sometimes I've been out of stock in the past, but usually it's a week or two, no more than 3 weeks. This time I think it was 4 or 5 weeks, and it was a lot of COVID related problems with it. It took a long time to get the ingredients imported in because there's all kinds of restrictions now, and people have to go through an examination process, and that's all fine. And then the manufacturing side of things, first they have less capacity because of COVID. They don't have as many employees in the warehouse, so it's a slower process. And then there were snowstorms in the East Coast, and then the holidays came, and it was just one thing after another. I'm going every day. You're going, get this back in stock. What's going on here? It was such a pain in the ass, but eventually so I mean, where I'm going is this is something simple. Manufacturing a product in the big scheme of things, that's not a serious operation, but even that took forever. So for us to get a hold of this pandemic, we're not going to just get a hold of it in a couple months. It's going to take than everyone would like. But what's interesting, before I started talking to you, I was answering some emails, and then I started getting some pitches from concert promoters, right? Live Nation, these different ticket selling companies. Concerts. And so it's all these concerts that are being promoted for September, October, November, December. Now I'm sitting there thinking, there's a good chance these concerts are not going to happen. So why would anyone buy tickets? First of all, it's so far out. Okay, well, why am I buying tickets for a concert that's not coming until October? It would have to be something huge where you have to buy it that far in advance to get a good seat, right? That I would get. But these are events where normally you could probably buy a ticket the week of and you'd probably have a good seat, or no more than a couple weeks out. So I go, who's going to fork out a bunch of money for a concert 9 months down the road in a COVID world where there's a really good chance those events are not going to happen?
I know. Believe it or not, I've had similar emails this week from, there's a UK place called Ticketmaster, and they're promoting concerts here, April, May, June.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking, and I'm like, okay, we'll see. Oh, please don't. That would be so painful.
5 people clapping. Yeah.
That would be so sad.
You go to Bon Jovi, who would normally play in front of 20,000 people. Now it's going to be 200. I mean, when are you ever going to get that chance again? So there might be some interesting.
I don't think he would get out of bed for that. Oh man.
Yeah, so it's gonna take a while, but I think we're gonna get a hold of this. I mean, and there's a lot of glimmers of hope. New Zealand's doing really well. Australia's doing very well. So countries are figuring this out. Right now, we're in this. The numbers are getting worse, and it's doom gloom. But I think that's just that's just the natural course this thing has to take. It's going to get worse for a while, get really bad, and then it starts finally coming back around. So the key is make yourself as healthy and resilient as possible. There's no more important time than right now. Everybody's sitting around for the vaccine, and however you feel about the vaccine, that's fine. But the vaccine's not coming anytime soon. And the people that are going, well, I'm not going to get that. And I understand that too. But often the people that I hear saying that are the people that need to get it. And if they need to get it because
yes, yes.
I go, look, I can understand someone having reservations for a lot of reasons, but you're not someone who should have reservations because you're extremely unhealthy. You're not doing anything to take charge of your health right now. You're just waiting for this. When if you started a healthy regimen at the very beginning of the lockdown, which in America was around March, so there was a couple of months where nothing was open except grocery stores and gas stations and hospitals. That was just what was deemed essential businesses.
Same here. Yeah.
And so that was an opportunity to get into the best shape of your life. You got all the time in the world now, right? There's no more excuses. You can eat clean or eat really unhealthy. Those are your choices right now. You can get into shape, or you can sit around and watch the TV. You can watch the same news report all day long. And I know some people who took charge of that situation, and they really got a full throttle on their fitness regimen, and then they're still maintaining that now. So you had an opportunity to begin the process, because you're not going to transform in 3 months, but you can definitely make serious progress in 3 months that motivates you.
Can make a massive inroads. I mean, one of my clients, she did that, because she's an engineer, but her job, she ended up being what the term here is furloughed. Right. So you can't be with us just now, so you can just work from home. So she would do what she could from home, and she joined my online coaching group, and she got in the best shape she's been in about 10 years because she was committing to doing something every day. Yeah. And in the middle of a global pandemic, and yet so many other people just decided we just won't do anything. We won't go anywhere. Not having places to go doesn't mean you can't be productive. It doesn't mean you can't look after yourself.
Right.
I really don't understand that mentality. There was something in the media here over the last couple of days, and I don't remember where I saw it, but it said that sales of cigarettes and alcohol in my part of the world were at an all-time high.
Oh yeah, here too.
So, oh my God. It's like, that is utterly mental. You've got a disease circulating the world that is attacking your respiratory system, and you're smoking more cigarettes and drinking more alcohol. Yeah. There is no sense in this at all. I just don't get it. There needs to be health promotion. Encourage people to move more, encourage them to get out and go for a walk, encourage them to eat better. But instead, you just see, these massive companies that are all already making too much money, being the tobacco and alcohol industry, now making even more, and weakening the people that they're selling to. It's just, it's pretty crazy.
There's no worse time to do both of those things in excess than ever. Right now is not the time to go on a drinking binge every night or smoke a pack of cigarettes every day. I mean, there's never a good time to do that. Yeah. But right now, more than ever, is a terrible time to do that. In Nevada, we had the governor had this saying of "Stay home for Nevada," right? That was the motto that was everywhere. And Mark Phillip, he and I were talking about that. He go, what it should have been is get fit for Nevada. You don't want to overrun the medical care system. Yeah. Do it. You get as healthy as possible so that if you come into contact with COVID, most likely you're going to have mild to moderate symptoms where you can just self-treat at home. You don't have to be in a respirator at a hospital. So if we want to avoid overrunning the hospital, how do we do that? We make sure that we're as healthy as possible. We do our part. It's like, wear a mask for other people. It's like, okay, fine. Get healthy for other people too. It's like, I'm going to take charge of my health. You know why? So that if your grandma needs to go to get a hospital bed because she has serious symptoms, I'm not going to be taking that bed for her. I'm going to be at home self-treating. That's something I can do.
Yeah. And I mean, you basically said there what I've been saying for months as well. I mean, there's just so much emphasis put on, vaccine, stay safe, wear a mask, blah, blah, blah. But really, health promotion it should be paramount. It should be center.
Yeah.
And it's just not. It's like over here.
Vitamin C. Make sure your zinc levels are good. These are simple, cheap measures everybody can engage in. You don't have to eat the healthiest diet in the world. Get some fruits and vegetables. Get some cleaner food sources. Let's just load up your body and make it as resilient as possible.
Yeah.
And then that's how we avoid overburdening. I mean, like America is a very unhealthy country overall. We have extremely high obesity levels, heart disease is very high, metabolic syndrome, you name it. And that's one of the primary reasons why we've been hit so hard by this and why the hospitals have been overrun. Yet, in spite of that obvious fact, we're still not being talked to about, hey, we need to get as healthy as possible. Now, I've brought this up with people, and some people have said, oh, well, does the government even need to say does the government even need to say that? People should know what to do. I was like, look, if you rely on a world where you hope that people know what to do, we're in trouble, right? A lot of people have no clue what to do. So yeah, motherfucker,
No, they don't.
I do think the government needs to, or anyone who has an audience needs to say, this is what we need to do individually to get things going. It's like, oh, no one needs to hear that. People know what to do. It's like, no, they don't know what to do.
They don't. They don't know what to do. It's nail on the head. They don't. And health promotion is exactly where it's at. So yeah, it just, for me as an individual, not just as a coach, but as a parent, it just frustrates the living daylights out of me when I see people just not going anywhere, not doing anything. Gyms forced to close. It's like, where's the sense in that? You've got loads of people that want to go and improve themselves and be strong and resilient, and you won't let them. It's like in England, there's outdoor gyms in a lot of places. Right. They're all sectioned off. People have been arrested for trying to use outdoor gyms. It's like, this is madness. This is just sheer insanity.
Too, right? Like California is in a big lockdown. Their numbers are still going way up. So why isn't it working? Everyone's sheltering in place, as they say. Why aren't the numbers going down? They've been sheltering in place long enough that we should see a downward trajectory. So clearly that's not working. I mean, in Nevada, we shut down the whole city for a couple months. The casinos have never been closed like that before. I think they closed for 24 hours after one of our presidents was assassinated, JFK, and that was in the 1960s. And then maybe on 9/11, they closed for a couple hours. I don't even think they closed the day after 9/11. I think business resumed as normal. Some of these casinos actually have measures in place where if they're a victim of a terrorist attack where a part of the casino gets blown up, they have a measure in place where they can section that off really quickly and then keep business going. Right? So that's the mentality. Wow. That's the problem-solving level that they're at. Now, all of that in mind, those casinos were shut down for months. And now we have two problems. Before we had COVID, now we have COVID and a devastated economy. So in my opinion, and look, I'm not an economics expert or an infectious disease expert, but it didn't make sense to shut everything down, certainly not for that long of a period of time. Now, thank God we haven't shut down again, because I don't think it even helped. I think maybe it delayed the inevitable.
I agree with you.
I certainly don't think it helped. So there's no point trying that again. So fortunately, even though our numbers went up, nowhere near as much as New York or even in London or in California, the numbers I think are still going up, but we haven't shut down again, which I'm glad to see, because that's not the answer to what we're doing here.
No.
People need the bell to make. People need to get out of the house. People need to go do stuff. People need to feel like life is still worth living. We can't just shut down and everyone stays home for the rest of the year. That's just not going to work.
Yeah. I mean, the whole impact on people's mental health has been completely washed. It's just not being paid attention to at all over. And again, I mean, there was some pretty devastating figures put out in the British media about the rates of suicide now during this period of time. I think it's something like a 20-year high. Wow. That's no coincidence.
Oh, yeah, definitely not.
And it's really, really disturbing just when you see that people are, governments are still wanting to keep all these strict measures in place that clearly haven't worked. And they're putting these vulnerable people with mental health issues right in the firing line. And it's just so sad, and it's so avoidable. Whereas something as simple as keeping gyms open, keeping outdoor training spaces open, all of these things might just help people to feel better, to function better. Because if we are mentally suppressed, your immune system goes to shit as well, because your brain and your body are linked.
Absolutely.
You know, you're not going to have a body that's in amazing shape and then a mind that is all to hell. It might go all to hell a little bit, but if you've got a strong body, you're strong enough to create this. You're strong enough to bounce back in your mind as well.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
if your mind crumbles, the body will follow. And it's, we know this, and yet nobody's doing anything about that. And I think that's probably the bit that disturbs me more than anything else, is the effect that this has on people's mental states and on kids as well, that can't go to school, can't do their activities that they like to do. I mean, my daughter, she's a fencer. She loves to fence.
Yeah.
It's been almost a year she hasn't been fencing. So you look at all these kids that do their swimming clubs or basketball or soccer, whatever, and they can't do any of it.
Yeah.
That's going to have an impact on these children.
Oh,
big
definitely.
time. So, I really, really hope that this year does, as we move further into it, progress, and that we get some kind of consistency and routine back into place, not just for us as grown-ups, but for the young ones as well, because you don't want them to be in a situation where there's nothing to do and nowhere to go and being in their head too much. That's not good. That's
Fortunately,
not good at all.
we're not too, like I was telling you before we started recording, we're not too shut down right now. Like, gyms are open, as you can tell. I post clips from me training all the time. Everybody has to wear a mask, and that's fine. I'll deal with that. Sometimes they come in there and they cancel their membership right on the spot. They get mad at the gym owner because they have to wear a mask. I go, there's no point getting mad at the gym owner. That's a government mandate, right? They can get fined, shut down for not enforcing that. So getting mad at them is futile. Go down to City Hall if you want to get mad at someone, all right? But just put a fucking mask on and deal with it. Don't be a little bitch about the whole. If I can deadlift 600 pounds with the mask on, then you can do your little dipshit workout with the mask on, all right?
Yeah. It's not stopping you training.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing about gyms. Now you would think that a gym is an incubator for spreading COVID, right? Like it's going to be a super spreader. But the numbers have not gone up in the gym population that I see. In other words, I don't hear people going, "Hey, where's that member?" It's like, "Oh, he's at home treating with COVID." Or it's like, "Oh, I haven't seen her in a while. Oh yeah, she got COVID last week." I haven't heard any cases in that environment. And there's a reason for that. Number one, these are people who are healthy and they take care of themselves. And that doesn't mean that you can't come into contact with it. But if you do come into contact with it, you're probably just going to have to isolate for a week or two, and then you're good to go. So you don't hear about it that much. So in other words, the gyms being open has not caused a surge in numbers, is where I'm going. I don't even the casinos being open has, and that's an unhealthy environment if there ever was.
Yes.
The good thing about the masks is that right now it's flu season, and there's some pretty nasty flus that go around and colds. So I think there's actually going to be a little bit less of that because everyone's wearing a mask. So we're not going to catch a cold and flu from someone. So that's the positive. That's the silver lining. I understand the hassle of wearing a mask. I understand it's inconvenient. Like, look, a lot of times I'm walking into a store and I realize, oh fuck, I don't have my mask, and I have to go back to my car and get it. I know it's a nuisance, but I'd rather have to deal with that than just be sitting around home because nothing's open. Like, right? If this is what we do right now, fine. Now we'll figure out whether it works down the line. If it doesn't work, then we can get rid of this measure too, because we know we know just locking down at home and isolating doesn't work. So there's no need to ever try that again.
Yeah.
All we can do is try stuff now and determine whether it works or not. And when it's determined that it doesn't work, then we move on to something else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the frustrating thing where I am, because they know that things don't work, but they're repeating it.
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing. It's like, well, but if you do something and it doesn't work, you don't just say, "Oh, let's try again." Yeah. You say, "Well, what can we do differently this time? How can we improve this situation?" But here, that doesn't seem to be on the minds of the the powers that be. They've got it in their heads that what they're doing is right, so they'll just do what they do. So, for all that I'm in a very isolated place, I'm in the Shetland Islands, I'm still grateful in a sense to be where I am, because I am quite removed from a lot of the craziness of bigger cities. I can just.
Have there been cases of COVID where you live?
There have been. I don't know if there's been much.
Yeah.
I know of people who have had it and are fine, weren't in hospital and all that, just stayed at home. But I mean, I don't know many people, but I dare say that it has been here, but I don't think it's been a plague like what a lot of people were worried about. But again, that's just all the more reason that people should be taking care of themselves. And it's just a shame that it takes a global pandemic for some people to sit up and pay attention to that fact.
Yeah. What's really a shame is that people still aren't paying attention to that fact.
Yeah.
The few that are going, you know what? I'm going to get my shit together. It's like, okay, it's late in the game, but at least you realize that. Let's go. Let's get this thing going. And then there's other people going, some must have this fatalistic attitude of, why bother getting in shape? I'm not going to survive this, or the world's not going to get back to normal. This fatalistic, like you were saying, we just have to accept the new normal. I go, no, we don't. I'm not going to accept this new normal. Let's get back to where we were, and let's get better than where we were, rather than life is not going to be as good as it used to be. I was like, that's nonsense. Not only can it be as good as it used to be, it can be way better. We can come out of this whole thing way better. Just like any of us who've ever experienced an injury. Like, I know people that have had physical injuries who are not workout people, and often they never rehab from it because they're not willing to go through the process. They just accept having this limp for the rest of their life when they could have easily had 100%, not easily, but they could have had 100% recovery if they were willing to accept a certain pain threshold and push through it. I mean, I had that horrible groin injury. There's no way I would accept just living like that. If someone's like, well, you're just going to have to deal with this pain indefinitely, I'd be like, fuck that. I'm not dealing with this pain indefinitely. I don't accept that. I'm going to accept that. I'm going to do whatever I can to get myself back to 100%, whether it's physical therapy, cells, whatever it is. And I think that has to be the mindset of things aren't working out. You don't just accept that as the new normal or the new reality. You figure out, okay, let's steer the ship where I want it to go. Let me take charge of the situation.
Well, it's taking charge and creating your life, creating what you want to happen. It's not just sitting back and being a passenger.
Right.
You have to, create with intent what you want, whether it's for your training or for your job or for your relationships, whatever. You have to project forward what you want. And if you're blindly following the masses, you're not going to get anywhere. And that's why so many people never move very far forward in their life. Some of them are just stuck. They're stagnating because they're just accepting where they're at rather than seeing that they could actually move forward if they wanted to. So, I mean, planning is a big thing. I mean, that's something that I spoke about a couple of weeks ago online. I do occasional little Facebook chats where I just go online and I chat about something that pops into my head. And this day it was planning your way to success was what I called this little chat. And it was just my tips on, okay, we're into a new year. Let's forget this bullshit New Year's resolution stuff. What are you actually going to do to make your life better? Don't just make a New Year's resolution that doesn't mean anything, that you're never going to stick to. You're just saying it because you think you're meant to, and it's going to make a good status on Facebook. Forget about that. What are you actually going to do? Where do you want to go with your life? Where do you see yourself next year? What kind of money do you want to make? What kind of job do you want to have? What kind of everything do you want to have? And plan it. Get it all out of your head and onto paper and just brainstorm it. And then you circle the things that speak to you the loudest. There's your short list. There's your goals. Right. Now, how are you going to get to those goals? Work backwards. So you've got your short list, and then you might give each one its own column, and then you're going to write down your steps that you're going to take to achieve that thing. So all of a sudden you've gone from these big ideas that can be kind of overwhelming because it's like, how the hell am I going to get there? But then you've broken them down. You've actually made them actionable. So planning is a really big thing, not just for a training point of view, but a life point of view. And I think if more people planned and actually got out of their head what they want to do and started tasking it out, way more would get done. I think many people are just incredibly apathetic about life. You know, they just kind of sit back and ho hum. Oh well, that's just the way it is.
Things haven't
No,
gotten
it's
bad
not.
for those people. Yeah, things haven't gotten bad enough for those people. They haven't hit rock bottom yet. You know, sometimes you give
Yeah.
people advice on things and they're going, I'm not really interested in that. It's like, things aren't bad enough yet for you. You know,
Mm.
unfortunately, you have to get a little bit worse for you to realize this is a problem. For some people, I mean, they're willing to accept a problem becoming a bigger problem for a long time, and then it has to burst or become something severe or acute before you finally take action. And that's a terrible place to be. You shouldn't have to wait for all four of your car tires to go flat for you to realize, maybe I should have checked the air every once in a while and
Yeah.
and so I can
Yeah.
avoid the problem. You just do some maintenance along the way. But unfortunately, that's the reality that a lot of people have. They just
Yeah.
not accepting the new normal. They accept being in a deteriorated state. Usually deterioration is a gradual process too, so it's easy to accept it at each level of deterioration. If it were extremely rapid, like let's say your testosterone levels for a man were really high, and then a week later they're abysmal. You're gonna be like, "Whoa, I feel horrible. I need to do something."
Yeah.
You're gonna do something about it. But if it goes down gradually, so it's really good one year, next year it's a little bit lower, but not enough to notice, and then it's a little bit lower after that, and then 5, 6 years down the line, it's significantly lower. But you've adapted at each deterioration, where you don't remember what it's like to feel so good.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
think,
Because
okay,
they get used to being mediocre.
right, right.
Yeah. You know, mediocrity is not an attractive place at all. You know, it, it always reminds me of a quote by Zach Evanish, good enough is the death of greatness. And
Yeah,
I just love that quote because you can just apply it to anything. Doesn't matter if it's your training, your hormone levels, anything.
yeah.
You know, you don't just want to be good enough. You want to be optimal. You want to be great. You want to be at your peak. And it doesn't matter whether you're our age or older or younger. You know, we should always be striving to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And I think anything less than that is just it's just mediocre, you know, and I that would be like the worst thing for me would be just to be good enough or to be mediocre. To me, that's just hell. You always want to be striving, you want to be shooting for something that's not quite there. You're trying to reach for it, you're always striving, you're moving forwards. You don't ever want to just get there, because then when you get there, where do you go next? You always want to be chasing that next thing. That's
That's why
how I operate anyway.
I say
Yeah.
don't compare yourself to others. And I understand where they're coming from, but sometimes it's good to compare yourself to others because that can be
Yeah.
motivating. Because people ask me, just like they ask you, they go, "Why are you still motivated to get stronger at this point? Aren't you strong enough?" And I go, "Look, it's strength is all relative. You know, to you, I'm super strong, but by my own standard, I'm looking at people that are way further down the line from me, and that doesn't
Yeah.
demotivate me in any way or make me feel inadequate in any way. If anything, it motivates me because it shows me what's still possible. Because if other people
Yes.
that I can, maybe I can't achieve what they're achieving, but I don't have to achieve that as long as I'm improving. I'm beating myself. As long as I'm improving each time, that's motivation enough. So just the note,
Yeah.
just striving to improve. It's like that old story about that Greek guy who was punished where he had to roll the rock up, and every time he got to the top, it would roll back down, and then he had to roll it back up again, and he just kept on doing it. And people are like, why don't you
Hmm.
give up after a while? He goes, because I'd rather keep trying to move this rock up, even though I know it's going to come down, than just do nothing, than just give up.
Yeah. It's a great story. It really is. And it does say a lot, you know, about life and how we should always still be striving for something just to push even that little bit further. You know, I think when you think you've done enough, do more.
Yeah, you can always get better.
Just
You can always
yeah,
improve.
it's like the whole like even Tom Platz, you know, the legendary Tom Platz, the
Yeah.
quad father in bodybuilding, you know, his famous 5 more reps. And that
Oh,
five
yeah.
always becomes another five and another five and another five
That's
until
true.
you're collapsing under the bar.
Yeah. His workouts, I love watching his workouts when he was in. I mean, he's
Yeah,
still in phenomenal shape for
it's
a
in
guy his
great
age,
shape.
or really
Yeah,
any You know, he's really strong and fit still. But those videos of him, those vintage Tom Platz videos where he's in his prime, going just a level of intensity he would get himself in, that state of intensity he would get himself into, that you get fired up just watching that. You know, I can't wait to train.
Yeah.
Clips. I go, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's go. Let's get this thing going.
I'm gonna squat now. Yeah, I've watched him. I've got to go and squat. Yeah, you just feel that intensity just coming at you through the screen, and it would just do something. It just light you up. I mean, I used to get the same way about watching Arnold Schwarzenegger train as well. That, you know, that would, or even the likes of Corey Everson. That was my favorite female bodybuilder. I would just love to watch her. I thought she was amazing. I still do. The woman's in her 60s now, and she still looks amazing.
Yeah, she does.
So yeah, you look at other people like that, and they just inspire you. They just, you know, give you that little bit of extra that you might just need to realize you're not all that. We've still got stuff to learn. We've still got stuff we can do.
Yeah,
you know, there's still progress to be made.
Yeah, you can always, and it's. A lot of times people accept. I remember when I was in my 20s, guys would say, "Oh, you know, enjoy it while it lasts. You know, once you hit your 30s, it's going to be a lot more difficult." And then 30s came along, and I'm still performing at a high level. I'm still strong, and people go, "Oh man, once you hit 40," I go, "Okay, well, I hit 40 a while back, and I'm still progressing." So I go, "When's this deterioration supposed to happen?" Now, I'm not saying that you have to, that you don't modify things as you go along, but I think that's more mileage related than it is age related. And what I mean by that is I've been working intensely since I was 18. So if I'm 47 now, that's a long period of time of intense training. Also, you have to remember, I didn't know what I was doing for a long time either. So I made a lot of mistakes. So, which is even more wear and tear on your body. So it doesn't mean, and also you're a lot stronger now, which is also a lot. If you're deadlifting 500 pounds for 3 sets of 5, that's a lot more wear and tear on your body than deadlifting 225 for 3 sets of 5. So you may need more recovery time, not so much because you're older, but because you're training at a much more intense level that was going to require some more recuperation. So anyway, there's always ways to modify things, but the way I train now is really not that much different than the way I trained in my 30s and even my late 20s. It's still full body workouts. It's still pretty intense. I don't go to failure often. I leave a few reps in the bank, but I'm still training intensely. And I just make sure that restoration methods are on point. I'm getting my sleep every night. Nutrition is always good. I'm making sure my hormones are dialed in. You know, just things like that. I get massages more regularly. I do stuff like infrared sauna and jacuzzi, and you just take care of yourself better as you get older.
Yeah.
That's stuff you should have been doing when you were younger too. You just didn't think about it then.
Well, it's a lot of stuff we didn't know, you know, or maybe people told us stuff back then, but then we didn't pay attention. But I do think a lot of the stuff that, you know, when we start learning it and then we start implementing, and that's when we really start to progress further in a, maybe not always in the poundages that we're lifting, although some of us, you know, like you, are still pushing the envelope with your poundages, but more in the, I guess, the style that we use. We learn to do things in a slightly different way, or, you know, like I went from bodybuilding into kettlebells, and then kettlebells into mace work and club work. And so I've, you know, and bodyweight work. So I've got this bank of stuff that I now pull from. So it's like over the years, yes, I've trained for a very long time and very consistently, but I've weaved in and out of different things along the way, and then learned to pull them all and make them work for where I'm at right now. See, it's the experiences we pick up over the years, and then we just kind of join the dots up.
Right.
And you create what is you now.
Yeah.
You know, we are a culmination of our experiences and the lessons learned, you know. And for some of us that's good, and for some of us it's not so good, but you know, it's mostly good.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because I still take a lot of elements from. I don't do as much kettlebell focused training as I used to, but I still lift kettlebells. I still do presses, swing, you know, all that stuff. It's more supplementary now than just the main enchilada or the big enchilada. But I still take a lot of those concepts and apply it to everything else I do. Now it's just more of all these different things: body weight training, kettlebell training, club bells, powerlifting, even some bodybuilding elements. You're infusing all that together into a unique program itself based on what you're trying to achieve.
See, and I love that, because I think for a long time people were too focused on it had to be one thing that you did, and it could only be that one thing. And I
Right.
think some of that does come from the bodybuilding influence of the 70s and the 80s, where
Yeah.
you would go into gyms all over the world and they were all set up to be essentially for bodybuilding. You know, they
Right.
weren't set up for functional training or for
That's right.
more diverse training. Whereas, you know, enter CrossFit, you know, and then all of a sudden all the gyms are like, oh my God, now we need Olympic bars, we need bumper plates, we need rigs, we need flooring that can take people dropping stuff. And then
Right.
things started to
Right.
shift and move and diversify. So you go into gyms now, and you'll see it even in your gym in Vegas now, you know, people just, they're not just doing bodybuilding style training.
Right.
You're now seeing different things
Yeah.
creeping in as well, which I think is pretty cool. You know, it's nice to see that diversification in people's training. You know, we don't have to be tied to one element, you know, because there's so much good we can gain from multiple things. It's just knowing what to put in the right amounts, you
Right.
know, because again, that's something I've spoken about before as well online. I sometimes say, don't variety yourself into weakness.
Yeah.
Just because there's all the toys there doesn't mean to say you have to use them all. But if we, with knowledge and understanding of how to use these things, take different pieces and put them into our own puzzle, we
Yeah.
can make them work. So like for me, it's kettlebells and body weight and mobility work. And then in my own personal practice, I still pull a deadlift a couple of times a week. You know,
Yeah.
I still love deadlifting. So
Yeah.
I still
Come
have
on.
that in the mix as well. But we're pulling these things in in quite an intelligent way, a thought out way. It's not just throw it in a bucket and see what happens like CrossFit, you know. You know, what will we do today? Shake a cup, roll a
Yeah.
dice, let's find out. You know? No,
Yeah, you
no,
never get
it
good
should
at
be
this.
planned.
You never get good at the skill of any exercise when there's too much variety. So if I'm just
Bingo.
learning traditional deadlift, so I do that on Monday, and then the next time I do sumo, and then the next time after that I'm using chains, and then the next time after that I'm using bands, or the next time after that I'm doing trap bar. I'm never getting good at any one thing. I don't need all that variety.
Exactly.
You may not need that
Exactly.
variety ever. Someone like Ed Cohen, arguably the best powerlifter ever, he never used chains and
Yeah.
bands, accommodating resistance, or any of that stuff. He just practiced the 3 lifts and did supplemental moves, and he's the greatest ever.
Phenomenal.
So it's
Yeah.
something to be taken from that. Now, variety is fine. You can balance the two, where you have a good
Yeah.
enough amount of variety so that it doesn't just become mundane after a while. But I don't think it's variety that people are craving so much more than it is progress. So when they're lacking progress,
Yes.
start thinking, okay, I need variety. That's why I'm not making progress. Because if you're doing the same standard lifts, look, if I'm just deadlifting 3 times a week, I'm just doing the standard deadlift. I'm not using any variation of it, but I'm getting stronger every week. That's not going to get boring. I'm not going to be like, God,
Yeah.
man, every time I come in here, I'm just
Exactly.
lifting more. This is boring as fuck.
Progress is never boring.
So
because
tired
you're always moving forward.
until I train. I mean, this is getting boring. It's too easy. You know, that never happens. But the only time you start reevaluating your training system is when you're stalling. You're going, okay, I'm not making any progress. So what can I modify here? If anything, sometimes you don't need to modify anything. Sometimes you just need to stick it out and then it'll come back around.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to modify a couple things. Maybe sometimes your central nervous system is just burned out with the lift. Your brain is just tired of doing that lift. So you modify a couple things. You do something similar enough that you're not going to lose any momentum there, but different enough that it opens up a new pathway with your brain, and then you continue going. But variety for the sake of variety, or I've sometimes you hear people say, I've never done the same workout twice. I'm like, well, you're probably not good at anything either, because
yeah, exactly.
you're really good at it. You're just working out for the sake of working out. You're mediocre at everything. You're not good at anything.
Yes. Oh, Mike, I could so say something about CrossFit when you said that, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
Well, here's my take on CrossFit. I think CrossFit's done a lot of good to get women in particular comfortable with weight training And also, as you said, a lot of commercial gyms have had to modify their what they're offering based on the influence of CrossFit. As you said, okay, now we need rings in here. Now we need deadlift platforms. Now we need bumper plates. And those are all things that are useful for me, a guy who doesn't do CrossFit, but benefits from those changes. And I think where CrossFit goes wrong is that there's too much focus on making every workout competitive. Like Steve Maxwell said, look, you get two people and they're both, okay, who's going to do as many, so whoever does as many push-ups as possible wins this. Well, what's going to happen? The form is going to deteriorate at some point because now you're just chasing numbers. While you're going, let's do 25 reps, but I want rep number 25 to look exactly like rep number 1. That's the goal. The goal is not just reps for the sake of doing reps. I go like when I deadlift something heavy, I don't want to just lift something heavy. I want it to look good when I do it. I want my technique to be on point. I want it to look nice and crisp because to me, it's if I do something and the technique looks terrible, no one's ever seen that because I'm not going to post it. And if I do post it, it'll be like a scary tale. It'll be like, normally I have really good technique. I don't know what happened today, but this looks like shit, and I'm going to evaluate this and make sure it doesn't look like that again. So you don't want to, when it comes to weight training, you should never get injured from physical training outside of your sport. So in other words, strength training or anything like that, kettlebell training. Now, that doesn't mean that injuries aren't going to happen. That's just part of the game. They happen from time to time. But you should try to avoid that most of the time with planning things out properly. Now, when you have a system where you're taking complex lifts like Olympic lifting lifts, and then we're going to start chasing reps with that, there's very few people that can do that safely. You have to have damn good tech. There's a reason why most Olympic lifters don't do more than 3. A lot of them don't do more than sets of 1 because it's such a technical lift and they're going heavy. Now, if those people aren't even doing more than 3 reps, why does the average person think that they can do barbell snatches, even with what is considered relatively light? Those moves are just not conducive to high reps for most people. Some get away with it and they're going to say, hey, look, well, look, there's a lot of things that a lot of people do and they get away with it. That doesn't mean everyone else is going to do fine with it. So I think you can do whatever you can train at whatever intensity you want. You can have as much variety as you want, but once you start compromising technique, the whole house of cards is going to fall because once that technique it gets a more worse. And now when you should never lift more and compromise technique is where I'm going. And Charles Poliquin had a technique he did with his people or a training practice where if he had a client and let's say they did barbell overhead press and the first 5 reps looked great, but number 2 and 3, the bar is not balanced and they're doing excessive back bending. They didn't count those reps. It's like, no, you didn't do 10 reps, you did 8 because after 8, it deteriorated so badly that we're not going to count those. So now the client is programmed to not bother letting it deteriorate to that point because they realize, hey, it's not even going to be counted. So let me just keep everything. You should look good while you're doing stuff. Is my succinct answer.
It should be perfect. Your technique should be bang on, and if it's not bang on, you're not using a weight you can handle well. So use a weight you can handle well. It's like, who cares if there's less on the bar? Your body can't read the number on the bar. That comes down to this psychological need to always want to add more weight. I mean, I remember stating something so simply to someone years ago where they said, how much can you leg press? This is when I was still a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, maybe a couple of 100 kilos, but that would be like my top end. Oh, I thought you could do more than that. It's like, well, no, because if I continually added more weight, where would it end?
Right.
Really? It's like I started at age 16. I'm 42 now. If you're always putting more weight on whatever you're doing, be real here. Is that doable? No, it's not. You've got to find other ways.
It's like I'm doing the leg press now, which I haven't done in a while, and I'm enjoying it. But I'm doing it to add some size because I'm a taller guy, legs are hard to develop. So I'm using it with that. So I don't really care how much. Now it's fun to load up all the plates. Don't get me wrong. I went pretty heavy last night, but the workout before that, I just had a couple plates on each side, and I just chased some reps, worked on technique, and I'm not even thinking about setting a PR on the leg press down the line. Who cares? I'm using it for a different mechanism. So when someone's using it for bodybuilding purposes, the goal is not how much can you lift. In fact, The goal is how much benefit can I derive from a lighter weight? If I can use a 30-pound dumbbell and get superior results in a heavier weight with improper technique, that's better because that's also less wear and tear on you too. So if you can get a lot more out of some lighter weights for the purpose of improving your physique, you don't have to go into those heavy weight territories to do it. That's actually a positive thing because now there's longevity.
Yeah. When I was bodybuilding, when I was at my biggest, all of my rep ranges were in the 15 to 20 range. And I occasionally went as high as 30 to 40. It was unusual for me to do a 50 rep set of leg extensions, to burn out, or a 50 rep set of squats to finish a workout. That was not unusual. And I would do walking lunges for, I kid you not, 100 strides at a time, per set. I mean, so my volume was off the chart. And I remember some people would say to me, but how does that work? So, well, it works for me. I find that stimulates growth in me. And yet when I would want to get stronger, I would have to back off on the volume and increase the weight, and that would increase my strength. So when I was at my strongest, I was never at my biggest, or my most muscular. So when I looked my strongest was actually when I wasn't my strongest. That was the really interesting thing about bodybuilding. You would look like you're this big, strong, woman. It's like, oh my God, how much does she lift? Not very much. She's doing a lot of volume.
But look at your work capacity. Yeah, your work capacity is incredible, though. 50 reps.
My work capacity at that time was off the chart. There was nobody could keep up with me. Anyone that tried to keep pace with me just couldn't do it. They would just be like, no,
bodybuilders can't lift as much as power. I go, yeah, in the context of what power lifters do, that's true. 1 rep maximum for the 3 lifts. But those power lifters would die if they tried doing any of the workouts that these high level because they take themselves to a serious pain threshold place that usually involves a lot of volume and a lot of reps that someone who's only trained 3 reps or less is not going to be able to handle.
Yeah, they've just not got that. I mean, so something that people would say to me now and again, what's your personal best on the squat, or what's your PR on your deadlift? And I'd be like, I haven't got one. I don't know. I just train. I train, and I'm keeping track of my weight, but how much weight is really not the goal here. The goal here is the result. It's at the end of the day, it was the creation I had made to put on stage. That was what I was being judged on. I wasn't being judged on the weights that I used. Whereas when I veered away from that and went more towards more strength work, then the weight got more important. But I just always found it so interesting that, I would look a particular way. I would look very strong, but I actually wasn't at my strongest when I had that look. Yeah. So that's, to this day, that still kind of gives me a bit of a laugh, because it's you're almost these two different types of people. She looks really big and muscular, but she's actually not very strong. And then she's smaller and more wiry, and she's really strong.
I mean, people make a lot. Funny. People make a lot of erroneous assessments, right? Like when someone's a big muscular guy, what do people say? Like, oh, wouldn't want to mess with that guy. I was like, well, he may not be able to fight worth a damn. He may not be able to fight out of a paper just because he's a big guy. In fact, there's a good chance he can't throw a punch because he's really big and stiff and doesn't walk. It's like, I was like, I'm not worried about that guy. I can just start sprinting away and then it's over. He's not going to be able to run after me. It's like, oh, okay, see you later. This guy's going to have a heart attack. But so sometimes people make these wrong assessments, and now you have people that train in jiu-jitsu, and like Dana White calls them nerd assassins. Sometimes these are dorky looking guys, look like they play Dungeons and Dragons with their friends on a Friday night, and look like they've never had a woman ever. But they train jiu-jitsu 5 hours a day, every single day. And they're a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and you're never going to see it coming because you're going to look at this person and be like, man, this person's nothing. And that person's going to he's going to break your arm in 5 fingers before you have a chance to think otherwise. Yeah. You should never I never look at anyone and make any kind of assessment on what I think their fighting ability is. Now, not like I'm some martial arts expert here either. But I never assume anything. I never assume if someone's really fit that, okay, I bet that person can kick some ass, or someone who looks like a regular guy. oh, that person looks like nothing. I could pick him up and throw him. I never make that assumption. And I've also had many people come through my courses that were high level military operators, and you would never guess that looking at them. They weren't particularly strong, and they certainly weren't muscular like what we would expect to see from watching movies in the 1980s. But they had a level of mental toughness that definitely came through once they started doing stuff. It was just a different mentality.
Yeah, they're just made of different stuff. It's a product of their experiences.
Right. Right. Definitely. Well, hey, I think it's a good place to end. We've been talking for how long have we been talking? Yeah, we've been talking for over an hour and a half, and actually another before we started recording. So let's do this. What's your Instagram handle?
My Instagram handle is @LittleTank.
Okay.
So Little Tank, all one word.
And then do you have a website where people can find out about your...
Yes, I do. So my website is littleTankTraining.com. Again, that's all one word. So littleTankTraining.com. And if anyone is on Facebook, they can find me under Little Tank Training as well.
Yeah, no one's on Facebook anymore.
I think they're all leaving. En masse.
There's been a mass migration to Instagram. People keep hopping from one around. I actually got rid of Twitter and Facebook a while back just because it wasn't serving me in the direction I was going. And I don't miss either one of them, especially Twitter. But Instagram, I actually like Instagram because when people complain about Instagram, I go, well, who are you following? Because you don't have to follow those people. Like, oh, I keep seeing this stuff in my feed. I was like, yeah, because you're following those people. If you don't like what they're putting out, unfollow them. Because what I see is people like yourself and my fitness friends working out, and that's motivating for me. And then I see a lot of different nonprofits that I follow that are doing incredible work. So for me, it's very inspirational when I look at my feed. I see people doing great stuff. I want to help these causes, and I see people, all I see are people doing great stuff and people working out. So I want to do great stuff, and I want to go work out after my feed.
Yeah.
So you use it the right way. That doesn't have to be something that's frustrating in any way.
Yeah. I mean, I like Instagram. A lot of people over here, don't seem to like it. They're still very Facebook focused in the UK, but Instagram, I like it. And as you said, I think it's just the ease of use with it as well. There's no pressure to follow anyone or not follow anyone. Whereas Facebook is still very much peer pressure, kind of like school, social pressure, where, you've got to be that person's friend because you met them in a queue at the supermarket last year, so you'd better like them and follow them. Whereas Instagram, there's none of that. It's a lot more chilled. I think the majority of people who follow me on social media do so through Instagram.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting, but I still spend quite a bit of time on Facebook because I have a closed group on there for my group, but we don't just work with Facebook either. I created a Slack channel for my group as well, and I did that on purpose. Slack is like the business version of WhatsApp, because I knew that not everyone wants to be on social media. Some people really are just backing off in it. So I thought, well, I've got to create something that people can communicate with me. So I created the Slack channel for my members. So that's been really useful, and it gets people away from social media, especially at a time where it's just so negative.
Yeah.
So it's just nice to shut that bit of your life away, or just go on it less often.
Yeah.
And focus on something good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, this has been good. Enjoy talking to you. Let's do this again soon. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. Mike, don't leave it 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.